welcome to Inside Sports Talk with your host, Joanna Rosselli, along with my co-host, Ed Cole, and today's guest, beat writer, Jose Romero. How are you guys?
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Joanna, good evening. How are you?
Good evening. I am great. I am happy and excited to talk some sports, talk some football, talk some baseball.
Let's roll. I'm ready.
Let's do it.
I don't know where to start because it been a crazy weekend with football on top of football. You know, we have NFL, we have college football as well. And then we have, of course, the World Series going on. How exciting has that been the last couple of days?
It's been crazy. So much action going on. We've got a great World Series. So much, like you said, football, NFL, college football. This is what we were waiting for when this virus first hit and we were hit by this pandemic and we had no sports. We were waiting for moments like this when there would be so much sports and we'd be so excited and there'd be so much stuff to cover and talk about. But there were months and months and months when we had nothing to talk about. Now we have everything to talk about, Jose.
Yeah. I think there was a day like earlier this month where we had an NBA Finals game, a baseball playoff game, college football and pro football all going on at the same time, like basically like overlapping with each other. And it was like, I mean, October's already a great sports month, you know, even without the pandemic. But with the pandemic, it's just, you know, you get all the great stuff in one day, in one shot.
No, definitely. I know that was a dilemma for us. It's like, okay, so what do? We have all of this. Like, oh my gosh, like so much, like we never had so much sports. It's great. And
it's great when the show makes itself, right? When the storylines just create the show and we just talk about what happens in sports.
Exactly. Except, you know, the World Series will be concluding in the next day to 2 days. We'll see who comes out the winner. Then I'll be having some withdrawals from that since there will be no baseball for a while. So, but I'll manage.
Are you ready for that?
No, I'm not ready for that.
Well, we'll be here for you. You know, we'll be your shoulder to cry on. And, you know, when you're having those withdrawals, you're like, is it baseball today? Oh, no, baseball.
Just we're here for you. A couple of days from the time the World Series is over.
Yeah, there's no fall league. There's no fall league here, so that's kind of like there's kind of like a void there. But we'll be in spring training here before you know it. Hopefully, we'll be in spring training anyway.
That cannot come soon enough. I know, like World Series. I cannot even speak. Oh my gosh, World Series isn't over yet. I'm already looking forward to spring training.
It's the best.
It is.
Yes, it is.
But before we get to talking baseball, let's go ahead and get started in talking some football. There's been a lot of action. It was crazy Sunday of football. You know, we have the news. Odell Beckham Jr., he is out for the season. He has a torn ACL, which is just ouch, just to even think about. And the trade deadline is just around the corner. What does this mean for him being out, for the team, for, you know, coming up next year? What does mean for everyone, especially for Odell, and, you know, especially with the challenges he's recently had? We'll start with you, Jose.
He's such a talent, right? I mean, such a dynamic presence on the team. And we all know about his eccentric personality. But, you know, they look good. The Browns look like a decent team out there. They're not out there really shooting themselves in the foot a whole lot. Cincinnati played them tough yesterday. That was a great game, back and forth at the end. Looks like Baker Mayfield might have gotten some mojo back there. You know, they're always going to be fun. I remember they played the Cowboys, I think early in the season, and that game was just a shootout. It was back and forth and a high-scoring affair. So the Browns are going to keep you on the edge of your seat with or without Beckham. You know, it's tough to replace. And they also, I think they're missing Nick Chubb, the running back. He's not there either. He's hurt. So they're piecing it together. They're making it work. They're in a division that, you know, they have a shot in. So, you know, the Browns are still the team you can watch without Beckham there.
Yeah, you're right. They are in a division with the Steelers, who are 6-0. So the Cleveland Browns have to continue to win. beat your division opponent. Yes, it's Cincinnati. Yes, they have a rookie quarterback in Joe Burrow, but still, they went to Cincinnati, like you said, Jose, and got that victory, 37-34, a great game. But for Odell Beckham, how sad is that? Just days before the trade deadline, when everybody is speculating whether he's going to stay in Cleveland or where he should go. Should he go to Green Bay? Should he go to Seattle? Should he go to the Patriots? There's so many different places that Odell Beckham Jr. could have went before this injury, which happened ironically on an interception that Baker Mayfield threw. But just looking at Odell's stats, in the first game against Baltimore, he had 10 targets. Just from game to game after that, his targets have significantly declined. He's only had 43 targets this year and 23 catches. Look at Jarvis Landry's numbers, 39 targets and 29 catches. So Beckham and Landry have not had a connection with Baker Mayfield all season long, and it just has not been a good fit for OBJ in Cleveland, and it's unfortunate that this injury came up. Otherwise, he may have gotten a trade to wherever he would have really wanted to go to and actually be with a team that can actually contend. Not that Cleveland can't contend. They probably can if they keep winning. But still, to go to Seattle or Green Bay or to the Patriots or somewhere else, maybe Baltimore, the Ravens could definitely use him, whether they sign Des Bryant or not. Odell Beckham Jr. with the Ravens, of course, Lamar Jackson would love to have him there. But alas, it's never going to be at least this season because OBJ suffered that ACL injury. And it's such a sad way for Odell to end his season. And we don't know if we'll see him next season. It's probably a whole year recovery from an ACL injury. So we may not see him until 2022.
And it's just crazy too. We have Odell Beckham Jr. He's out with his injury. Unfortunate to see just any player see them get injured is just not something you want to see, especially seeing them out for a season. But at the same, we also just recently had Dak Prescott also go down with that, horrible injury. Just even pains me to think about it. I think it's just an odd year for not only for everyone, for sports and for football. I just don't know. I'm scared to kind of, see any more injuries to these great and well-known players.
And then, Joe, we had another major injury yesterday in Landover, in the place where I used to work for the Washington football team. John Bostic just absolutely destroys Andy Dalton. And now, and I don't know how, Jose, I don't know how the Cowboys players did not react and come out there and even defend Andy Dalton. Now, say if that would have happened to Dak Prescott, there would have been a riot on that field. They couldn't have completed that game because, the Cowboys players would have created a ruckus out there. But for the fact that they did not come out there to defend Andy Dalton at all, and John Bostic just laid such a horrible and horrific hit on Andy Dalton. That was such a sickening display of football.
You just wonder how much of an effect that the pandemic has had in terms of, not having a preseason, not being able to work on things, work on maybe form tackling, work on, the things that you have to get right during the preseason so you can take them into the regular season. Not to imply that, injuries happen no matter what, but I think that there has to be something to be said for the delayed start, that just kind of how there hasn't been a preseason. How guys are just trying to, the first few weeks they were trying to iron things out. Guys are getting hurt a lot easier, a lot faster, a lot quicker. Maybe they have time to build some strength in the body and not take that kind of punishment. If there's a preseason, there wasn't, and now we're seeing a lot of people go down.
And we saw it last night in the Cardinals-Seahawks game. Zach Allen got injured for the Cardinals. Jordan Phillips got injured for the Cardinals. Just so many guys getting injured at inopportune times. It's just the nature of the pandemic, like you said, Jose, and the teams not being able to have a full preseason and just an abbreviated offseason as far as their strength and conditioning and training camp. It's just hard for these players to come back in great football shape when it's in a shortened offseason.
We haven't even talked about college yet. I mean, those guys are going through the pandemic even worse in college. The virus is wreaking havoc on those teams in the SEC and the Big 12.
Yeah, and that's one of the things too we covered when sports was making a comeback. Is the pandemic is having sports come back and not having a preseason, not having those practices. Have it be baseball, have it be, basketball was a little bit different. Football, NFL, you're mentioning college football too, Jose, is what are going to be the factors or the complications or what can come from it or potential injuries and like how many are going to suffer, and what will be the gravity of those that have, of the injuries, and how many more are they going to be prone this year because they didn't have that conditioning that they get going into the season, and we're seeing it now.
The Pac-12 is starting up here pretty soon, so I would like to think that since they've had the benefit of being kind of one of the last leagues to start in college, that maybe the injury bug won't hit them as hard. But on the other hand, some of these teams have already played several games. I mean, it's just such a weird schedule in college football. You're seeing teams that have played, 4 or 5 games already, maybe 6, and you're seeing other teams who played like twice. I'm thinking of the service academy schools, Army and Navy. I think, Navy's played like 5 times, and Air Force played twice. I mean, it's just nuts. And that's not easy on these kids. They're not getting paid anyway. So, and they're out there just risking life and limb playing a very physical and nasty game. They do it for the love. They're taking their chances, obviously. We love it as fans. We love to see it. We want the kids to play well and succeed. And we know that football is a great team building sport. Well, you just have to wonder, was it really worth all of this? That's a question that comes up to me. I see people go down so easily, and I see teams not being able to play a balanced schedule. And I'm like, you really want to go through all this to play maybe a handful of games?
Yeah, it is a two-edged sword. It's either you're darned if you do or you're darned if you don't. You either play or you don't play, and you just suffer the risk, which is with these outbreaks and players having a susceptibility to coming down with a COVID virus and injuries occurring because they haven't had enough preparation. They haven't had enough time to get their bodies in shape and get their bodies ready for the rigors of an entire football season.
Can I also say something about like these stadiums? I'm watching these SEC. I watched some SEC games the last few weeks, and I'm seeing a lot of people in the stands, and I'm wondering how in the heck, are you kidding me? Didn't Florida talk about wanting to sell out the whole stadium before the season was over? I mean, how's that going to work? It's already, a state that's rampant with new cases. You've got tens of thousands of people in a stadium that holds like 70,000, 80,000 people, but you've still got 15,000 people in there. Something's bound to happen. The disease is bound to spread. I'm just amazed at when I watch a game, an SEC game, and I see the stands, full, not full, but with a lot of people in them. You almost think, why not play in an empty stadium and reduce your chances, of getting something? But again, we see that money plays a really big role in college sports. It's a huge deal for athletic departments, for budgets. You don't want to think that it's the overriding factor, but when you see the risks that are being taken, you can't help but think that it is.
Yeah, that's what we've come to see, that it's the money that talks, and it's the major factor that decides what these teams or institutions or whoever decide, this is what we're going to do, or this is what we're not going to do. Unfortunately, that's what it all comes down to. As much as we don't want to see the stands full of fans, as much as great as having fan in the stands is, but at the same time, it's, like Ed said, double-edged sword too. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit more football. Ed kind of kicked that off a little bit, and seeing those Cardinals, bringing it local, those Arizona Cardinals yesterday go against the Seattle Seahawks and Russell Wilson. It was just one of those games that was just, in a way, hard to watch. It was kind of hard to, you would get excited, but you didn't want to get excited because you didn't know what the outcome was, or it was just going to be one of those, going to be taken right out, under you. And tell me a little bit what you saw last night. I know you did a game recap after the game on your Facebook page, but bring it on, on here and talk to us.
It sure didn't look too good in the first half. Russell Wilson and the Seahawks had almost 400 yards of offense, scored 27 points in the first half. Russell had 250 yards passing, did exactly what he does every time he comes to Glendale, and it just looked so it looked so bleak for the Arizona Cardinals in the first half. But give credit to the Cardinals. When they went in that locker room, Vance Joseph got his guys together, and they rallied, and they made the proper adjustments defensively and offensively. The Seahawks had less than 200 yards of offense for the rest of the game. Yeah, the Cardinals gave up 572 yards, but again, less than 200 yards in the second half and overtime, and they never lost faith in themselves and they just continued to rally. Kyler Murray just continued to grow. He took a major step last night in bringing the Cardinals